I'm Kaylin Adkins. My great-grandfather started Adkins Seasoning in 1967 with just one product, which is still our top seller. Today we invited Chef J.W. Morrison to show you how to make the most out of our entire line of seasonings and do it on a tight budget.
Today we're going to be working with center-cut butterfly pork chops. I'm going to be cooking them pan-seared inside, and then we're going to also grill them outside and do a comparison at the end. We selected an entire pork loin so that we could cut it down and get the pieces we want right out of the center. You're going to want to cut almost to that fat point and lean it over to the side, and then cut something the same size. And then what you ultimately end up with is a nice pocket of meat with your fat cap on the bottom. And then when you're cooking it, whether it be on the grill or in a pan, you're going to be able to put that fat down first, start to render it, flip it over, and that's going to melt into the meat. Because it's such a mild-mannered meat, we're able to use a generous portion of Adkins chicken and pork rub. We'll put it in the pan, get a nice browning on each side, and then let the fat render down into the meat. We're going to set these down with the fat side down first. Just for a moment so that it renders that fat, and as that fat begins to melt, we're going to flip these over and put them on the other side so the fat will melt down into the meat. You kind of focus more on your presentational side because it's going to come out to be the thing that you see the most. So I always do the presentational side secondary so that you can put your time on that one and get a nice browning. We're going to go ahead and do a flip here. General rule of thumb is you agitate meat just a little bit left and right to make sure that it's not stuck to the pan. If it is stuck to the pan, it's because the fats haven't released enough yet. Best thing to do is just wait for a moment. But that's come off nicely. That fat is rendering down. And we're going to get a nice brown on this side. And then these fats that are here are going to drip down into the meat and baste it while we're cooking so that it'll make it texturally really nice and soft. We're cooking right now in the neighborhood of 300 to 400 degrees. We're only looking for 145 degrees on these things. Pork cooks really quickly. It's generally something in between 5 and 7 minutes, depending on how thick the cut is. Okay, we're going to go ahead and plate these. They are going to continue to cook for just a moment, so we're going to let them rest. I'm at the end of my cook here. I'm looking at the pork. I'm seeing that it's caramelized. I'm seeing the fats render down. I have a little bit of oil in the pan. I have a little bit of fats in the pan. I have the font, which is the little pieces of meat that have come off and stuck to the pan. And the next step is to take an acid to remove those things off the pan and make your sauce. And you scrape all those guys up. It also does a nice job of cleaning up your pot as well. We can also take just another sprinkle of flour here, put it in to thicken that up a little bit. And then you get a nice pan sauce from that. And we can just take that, actually get that flour all cooked out. And that's just nothing but flavoring. So we're just a nice little bit of pink, which is now officially okay for pork.
That tastes amazing.
Really good.
Very flavorful.
Extremely. Nice texture.
I think I like pork more than steak now.
If it's done right, it can be very, very good.
Yeah, that's amazing.
We're back to prep work. We are setting the pork chop up for the grill. I've got a steak and fajita seasoning, which we're actually going to mix with the Western barbecue seasoning. Western style barbecue is my favorite of all the Adkins seasonings. The reason for that is just because it's so well-rounded and you can use it on literally anything across the board. This is a little bit of a stronger flavor and this is a little bit more of a well-rounded flavor, and by putting the two of them together, we're going to be able to create something that, although it says steak, it really works well for pork. Again, I'm just going to use a little bit of citrus because it's nice for the grill. Put just a little bit of fat on here so that when we put the meat on the grill, it doesn't stick to the grates. And just rub that in by hand. And because pork is such a nice mild meat, you can really go generously on these seasonings. I'm just going to pat that in, and you can see how well it accepts it into the meat. And that's about it. So the very first step that you want to take when you're going to be grilling is to make sure that you have a nice hot grate that's well oiled. You don't want to have a hot piece of metal that's going to go directly up against your meat, because the meat will stick to it until the fat's rendered down and let it release. There is a lot more skill required in cooking over an open flame. If you get those hot spots, you're going to have a different texture in different parts of your meat. If you've got a hot spot over here, you're going to cook that meat faster than on the other side where it may cook slower and be more succulent. This was about a 10-minute cook, and then we gave it a 5-minute rest afterwards. The rest is always really important because it's still carrying over in cooking, and you don't want to cut into it because you'll let all the steam release out of the meat, and then it goes dry on you. Well, right now we're finishing up our cook on the grill. We're about to pull it off and let it rest. We're going to give it a couple minutes to let all the connective tissues and the juices come together, and then we're going to give it a little comparison to what we did in the pan. This is nice and well rested. We've got consistent cook all the way through, nice little bit of pink left. It's going to be nice and juicy. Killer.
That's really good. The flavor is amazing.
It's dead on. Well, you know, as you can see, we generously flavored it. We formed a little bit of a crust on the outside, and those juices came out and they mixed together, and you've got kind of a melding of all the fats.
It's
a little bit spicy.
A little bit of a kick there.
It really went together well. And that's it. We had a great day cooking with Adkins, and our pork chops came out beautifully. I'm Chef J.W. Morris, and that's a wrap.